Hello, everybody, and welcome to Saturday's live stream. Um, Today, we are going to be giving away $100 to Top Shelf Aquatics, and Top Shelf Aquatics is actually having a sale this weekend, which is very cool. So you can use that $100 for their sale. Um, Also today, we are going to be looking at Brian Bench's aquarium and his automation, and specifically, we're going to look at how he's automated his feeding. So I'm going to bring Brian in. He's been on my stream a few times um, as a contributor, and I believe he's a moderator as well. So let me bring Brian in, and there he is. Say hello, Brian.
Hello, everyone.
So this is Brian, everyone, and he has a 400 gallon reef right behind. You can see it, and he's got some cool stuff he's going to show us today. So first off, explain how you're doing your feeding, because that was really interesting when you showed me, and I wanted people to see this.
Okay, so anyway, I'm going to flip my screen and we'll walk around and go and explain it.
Okay.
So this is the 400-gallon tank with a ship canopy or facade, and here's some underneath pictures as we go over. So we'll start at the feeder and kind of go through
Okay.
it. So here's a small fridge, a dorm fridge that I've plumbed into the closed loop. And we got a dose feeding pump. And what I found was the best container to use is this is a brine shrimp hatchery container that I took this right here is alcohol container that has the same threads. And I made my own little cap for it to keep the moisture in and so it doesn't evaporate. And so yeah, and I also put an eye in there so I can keep track of. I get a notification when it's low to fill it up, and I feed 3 times a day, about 30 meals of food a day, 3 times a day.
That's really cool. And where
And so
does
you
that go
kind of
to? Your sump or goes
so,
directly to
so
the display?
yeah. So this right here is a Venturi. And I've repaired it 3 or 4 times because I couldn't find them anywhere online. And I recently found some, so I bought a couple to have extras. So if somebody wants to know, they can get hold of me and I can let them know where to go get those Venturis. But anyway, that plumbing, that goes through my closed loop. And over here, there's coming out of the fridge, drilled holes in the fridge. Now, I just tried to replace this fridge a while ago and with a different fridge with a glass door because I wanted to be able to see through the glass door. And you got to be careful drilling through your fridge because I actually ruined a $200 fridge because I hit a coolant line.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, so the plumbing goes through here into the closed loop. And just to let you know, these lights that you're seeing, because it's a shipwreck, I have cannon doors on the other side. It looks like lights down below through the cannon doors at night. But anyway, so the closed loop, it all comes through the closed loop and so water's always running through the fridge. And so the food is always refrigerated. And a little bit, I'll show you what food I use because that was a test in itself to find the right kind of food.
Yeah, we've
And
had a
so,
lot of questions here so far.
okay,
One of them being what kind of food that you're feeding, and have you had any clogs?
I will show that in a little bit when we go downstairs.
Okay.
It's the Hikari brine shrimp with spirulina is what I use, but I'll show it when we go downstairs to see where I keep it.
So the food
Any other
actually
questions before we move
feeds,
on?
yeah, so the food feeds into a return pump of some sort using the Venturi. Is that how it works?
Yeah, so the closed loop, which is that reef dart pump, is
Hmm.
always is running the closed loop, but also I've done some ball valves right here so I can control the flow going through the fridge. And so you can see an arrow, the water's going this way, the water's going that way, runs up through this tubing, through the fridge, through the Venturi, and then it just pumps water right through, or when that dosing pump kicks on. And the reason why I like to dose is because it won't back pressure. I mean, as the water's coming through, it won't push water back into the container.
Right. So, question here: does it chill the water? Is there any effect of water chilling whatsoever?
As a
Because the
half-inch
pipes are in there.
I'm sure it chills it a little bit, but not that big a deal. I mean, my heaters, even in the summer, they probably only go on maybe an hour a week.
Okay.
Or in the winter, excuse me. In the winter, they don't go on very much. So I don't think it really chills the water. I mean, I'm sure it does a little bit, but nothing to really worry about.
I see. Another question. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing about the dosing, Neptune does have a video that shows you how to set this up. They have a setup where the food will go into the tank and then come back, and the food goes back into the container. Because my food is refrigerated, I don't need to do that. I just need to go one way.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Personally, I don't think that's a very good idea, because if there's food in the line and it's outside the fridge, it could spoil. But downstairs, I'll show you what I do on my wall tank. And I do have food that is stored outside, but it's insulated. And I've fed that way for 3 years and not had a problem. So,
yeah, Aaron's asking a question. Interesting. I didn't think about this. He's saying with the warm pipe in the fridge, I'd imagine humidity and any issues with mold.
I haven't seen any mold at all.
Okay.
And there's it's a fridge, so there's really no humidity. The only reason why there's humidity right now is like on this container right here is because I just barely put frozen food in there and it's defrosting. And normally this is dry. I've never seen any humidity other than when I put this in, and within like 8 hours, that's gone. Yeah. That humidity. You can see that.
So Ravi was asking, how often do you fill it? Now, that's just dependent upon how often you're feeding. I mean,
I haven't kept track for a while, but this is what I write down. I kept track for a little bit, just see what I'm doing. But my optical eye in there tells me when I need to fill it. One thing I'm going to do, since I have a dose, and you talked last week about those optical eyes that you can use your own container, I need to buy one of those cords and put that on there. Then I can keep track of the actual liquid.
Yep, that's what I do.
And so I just haven't set that up yet.
Yeah, that's what I do. Works great. Works absolutely great.
Kevin Peterson, he's on the stream. He's actually making those cords and saving me some money.
Oh, nice. My partner, nurse, good luck. Catch up. Okay. Are there any issues keeping thawed frozen food in that container? Leviathan had asked earlier, is there any ways to do frozen food? And Brian's system doesn't do frozen food. I had thought it did originally, but it's not frozen food. It's just cold food, right? It's in a refrigerator. That's not a freezer.
That is correct. And what I found, Hikari, which I'll show you in a little bit, they have a process that kills all the bacteria in their food. And so I have the food in there about a week, and I've actually had it up to 2 weeks, and it doesn't smell, it doesn't spoil. But I try to do it I only have enough food for a week, and I refill it once a week. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people will say don't do this because you're losing a lot of nutrients.
Right.
But I fed my tank this way for 2 years. And then with the Reef Nutrition food downstairs in my other tank, I fed it for 4 years.
Okay.
And I personally don't hand feed. Everything is automated.
Yeah, that's what he was saying here too. I see warnings on packages not to thaw before feeding, but you're not thawing frozen food, right? You're using a liquid food of some sort. You're going to show us what you're doing.
I am. If we're, I should have brought a container up. Actually, let me walk over. I'll show you the empty. Let me show you the container. I do have one up here in the fridge.
Okay.
Here's the food that I use.
Okay.
And see, when I get it, I break it up, put it in that container. It defrosts over like 6 hours, and then it's liquid. The reason why I use this food is because it suspends. It doesn't, the brine shrimp does not settle.
Uh-huh.
The brine shrimp doesn't settle, so it suspends and doesn't clog.
Oh, that's really nice. So, a couple more things here I want to answer for a couple people. Sleeve Stack, I use Amino Power, or Acro Power, sorry, and it does not need to be kept in the fridge. I dose aminos via a dose, and I use Acro Power. Someone had mentioned, and this was a good point. I don't know if it would void the warranty putting it in there. Someone had mentioned, is that going to void the warranty?
You mean the Apex or the dose?
Yeah, I don't see how that would. I know they're doing it themselves.
Well, I think if I ever had a problem with it and it did fail and they open it up and there's moisture with rust or whatever, yeah, that would probably void the warranty.
Yeah.
But I don't mind. I mean, it works. I auto feed. I don't have to manually feed because with my busy schedule, I put food on the counter so many times, forget it. And I just like I automatically feeds, or I push a button and watch it feed.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean that's awesome.
And if you want, we can do a feed and you can see it feed.
Okay. Let me I'm
You have
just
time.
I'm catching up on people's comments, so
Sure.
keep the options from not getting blocked for cinnamon powder looking stuff. Okay, so fellow reefer, something that I've mentioned probably in all of my streams is anytime you use optical sensors, you need to make sure that they are not in a place anywhere near um, dosing, anywhere near anything that would cause any type of crust formation. Um, you are using Red Sea Pro Salt, and unfortunately, Red Sea Pro Salt is notorious for creating all kinds of precipitant after storage. So, one of the things I'd recommend to you, fellow reefer, is switching your salt if you're going to be having containers of that size. I used to use Red Sea Pro. I have the same exact problem you had. I switched over to Tropic Marin Pro, and that stuff mixes really quick, and you aren't going to have any of that precipitant and any of the brown crap in your container. I used to get it after like 2 weeks. So there's really nothing you can do about that, frankly. But you got to make sure that optical sensors are not near any type of crust formation whatsoever. So hopefully that answers your question. Um, Ravi, to create virtual outlets in Classic, it's actually very easy. You go to Modules, and then there's a section at the bottom that's, I'm trying to remember what it says. It says something like Outlets. You click on it, and then there should be something called Lunar Simulator. Um, I'd have to log into yours to show you, but that's where you go. You go to modules where it shows you all your modules that you have, and then at the bottom there's a create outlet, and you can create 8 virtual outlets. You can create 1 virtual outlet, but they label them very odd. They label them like Lunar Simulator or something silly. Um, yeah, Corey, that's correct. I mean, unfortunately, with the coronavirus nonsense, a lot of stuff is hard to get right now. That being one of them. So, okay, so Brian, let's see what you got in the tank. How about that?
Okay, so I'll just kind of walk around. I got a lot of Gorgonians. Now, I was not going to do this stream because I did have a lot of my SPS die.
Okay.
So I got a lot of softies, and I just recently got rid of all my leather corals thinking that was it because I had a leather coral in here that was probably the size of 2 footballs.
Oh,
And then
wow.
also another leather coral about the size of a soccer ball. And thinking that they're having, so a lot of my SPS and different stuff died. And anyway, so this is my Zoa garden that I created, and it's really tight, so it's hard to get a full shot in here. But this is kind of cool. This little clam shelf that I did.
Oh, nice.
The clam was getting too big. It used to be in this corner right here, and as you know, clams as they touch the glass, they create like a calcium deposit on the glass.
Yep.
And so it was hard to clean, so I put it on a shelf.
That's, I have two clams. One of them is on the sand. It's pretty big. It's about 5.5 inches right now, and I'm
Yeah,
getting worried myself that it's going to overgrow it. But I have a Crocea clam. Croceas they don't get very big, and he's kind of just chilling on a rock up top high and doing fantastic. I find that clams do better high up, in the rock work. I've had
right.
a lot of people tons of people actually talk to me about clams and complain that their clams aren't doing well, and they have them all the way at the bottom of their tank. And I find that clams always seem to do better when they're in rock work, attached to a rock of some sort and high up in the tank.
Right.
Um,
Well, one thing I've heard that clams will bristleworms could get underneath them and eat them and kill them.
that's
I had a
100%
friend. I
correct.
had a friend that had a clam that he was bigger than a basketball, huge, and it recently died. And he think that because it was on the sand, that something got crawled up underneath and ate it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's good about, getting some type of, 6 line wrasses. If you have a clam, you should always have a pest eater, such as, like I said, a 6 line wrasse or what is the yellow Cory wrasses are good at that. They'll get rid of most of those type of pests that are
Yeah.
affecting clams, specifically the little snails that get up into the clams and eat them. Um, Hey, go back. Yeah, you got some really nice Zoa gardens going. Is that you have one on the right and left, or is that the same one? You just went around the tank.
Yeah, I just went around. That's the Zoa garden.
That's
Um,
awesome.
I want to make note. Be careful what you put in your tank because I have blue cloves that are starting to take over. And today, I'm actually putting in some chemical to kill them, and so hopefully it'll kill my whole tank. So, but yeah, you can see the blue cloves are starting to kill all the zoas. This used to be all zoas right here. Now they're all dying.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
this right here used to be all zoas. That whole rock used to be zoas, and the blue cloves is killing them. And also, if you notice, I also have Majano anemone problem.
Oh
That
no.
as soon as I do the blue clove killer, then I'm gonna attack the Majanos.
Yeah, I recently I had a Duncan. I still have it because I luckily. Oh, you got a long nose hawk. I got one of those
Yeah,
guys too. They're awesome. Um, my Duncan was getting close to a Lobo, and the Lobo started killing the Duncan. And luckily, I got the Duncan out and cut it, but half of it died. Um, but it's amazing what corals will do just at at a moment's notice. Um, so to answer Brett's question, yes, you can definitely have old style EB8s with the new Apex. You do have power monitoring to Corey's mention, but it's the full bar power monitoring. You don't have outlet power monitoring, if that makes sense. Um, Thinking about getting another clam, wonder if I have room for it. Yeah, if Rogue, you got a 600-gallon tank, so you could put a freaking 3 footer in there. But if you want to get some clams, stick with the Croceas, Squamosas. Squamosas get pretty big, but they won't get, gigantic. Brian, what kind do you have? Is that a Maxima? It looked like a Maxima.
yeah, it's a Maxima.
Yeah, I would stick with, Rogue. I would stick with some smaller ones right now. It's hard to find
No, I'm sorry, it's
good.
not Maxima. It's a Dorsa or whatever how you pronounce it. It's the cheap one.
Oh, it's the Durasa.
Yeah, the
Durasa.
cheap one.
Yeah, so right now Maxima clams, and I don't know if anyone on here sells Maxima clams, but they have been importing pretty poor quality Maxima clams right now. So I would stay away from Maximas for the time being, just my opinion. Um, Squamosas are always going to be your best bet in terms of um, longevity and ease of care. Squamosas can pretty much be put anywhere in the tank. They're usually pretty expensive. That's one thing about them. Croceas are really difficult to take care of unless you get them a lot of light. So just be aware of that. Let's see what else. 24, one more. Yeah, we need 25 people in the stream in order for the contest today. Um, Garrett, nice to see you, buddy. Thanks for coming. It's nice to see new people on the stream, definitely. For those that just came in, we have Brian on the stream, Brian Bench, and he's showing us his 400-gallon tank. He's showing us some of his automation. He's up there with automation. I would call this guy a control freak, definitely. And I don't say that lightly.
I'm showing my dry feeders now. I have flakes, and I have 4 of them here, over there, and over there. There's 4 of them all together.
Oh boy.
Flakes and pellets, and then I have 2 Reef. And so at 11:30 at night, these rotate 5 times each to like 1¼ tablespoons. I turn up the wave pumps full throttle and to mix it all, and it mixes all automatically. I turn my sump off for like an hour and a half, and so it all mixes in the tank and feeds the coral.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I got one feeder. I'm doing good with my one feeder. But my tank is, a quarter the size of yours. So
yeah. I'm going to walk downstairs and show the other tank.
Okay. Someone asked, what type of lights are you running?
I have Kessel AP700s, and I have some HXO's Reef Brights, and then T5s.
Very cool. Yeah, I completely agree with your choice there. I really believe wholeheartedly that T5 hybrid systems are the best. A T5 and an LED hybrid. That's what I'm running. It seems to really work the best for just about any coral you put in there. So that's pretty cool. That's right. Very similar to what I'm doing. Mine's in my my kitchen in the wall. I love it being in the wall like that.
Yeah, this actually hangs on the wall, so it's only 8 inches thick.
Oh wow!
It's a 20-gallon tank, and here's the feeding system. How I feed this one, I do use the Reef Nutrition food. Here's an empty bottle of it. No, that's Tiger Pods, but
that's a BRS doser right there. Yeah. It looks like.
Anyway, I'll show you right in the tank. Here, take this off. And here's all the hose and that feeds it with an insulation on it, the black insulation, and then also I have water lines going in there for auto top off.
That's really cool. Yeah, you're breaking up just a little bit, Brian. I don't know if your internet is spotty downstairs, but you're breaking up a little bit as you went downstairs. It could be. Yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
We'll go in my Harry Potter sump room is what I call it, because it's underneath.
It's underneath the stairs.
Yeah. So here's the auto, or not. I want to make an auto water change, but I haven't done it yet. But the right tank is fresh water. That's salt water. That's the whole part of the system, and then I cut it off. Put fresh water over there, add 3 gallons of salt, and do a water change in, less than a half hour. Do a 100-gallon water change.
Cool.
Here's the quarantine tank.
Oh, very nice.
And let me show you. Here's the fridge that I use to feed the quarantine tank. This is like one of those little mini fridges. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I use Mice's Feast. I love that stuff.
I use a BRS dosing pump to feed it.
That's so cool.
And one thing about this fridge is in the summertime, it does not like to stay all the way cold. So I got to kind of fight it a little bit. So
yeah,
with that small fridge, you got to be kind of careful on if you're really hot or if it's warm temperatures.
Yeah.
And then real quick, we'll just show you the sump. Here's the UV sterilizer skimmer. I built this sump. It's 8 feet long.
Wow.
And it's kind of tight in here, but got a lot of macro algae.
Yeah, that's the size of my 300-gallon tank just right there. Mine's an 8 foot long, 2 foot tank.
In the return area, I kind of made it. I was going to make this a little frag tank, but I don't have a lot of frags, so I just put algae in it.
Huh, there you go.
That's blue lights.
So what are you using to push the water to your tank? Are you using
I
Red
I,
Dragon? Is that what
I
you're
just
saying?
I just bought an Abiz A400.
Okay. Yeah, those
That's
are
why
good
that's
pumps.
why you could barely hear it. Before I had my hammerhead,
Oh, those are
reflow
loud.
hammerhead, and it's
Yeah,
pretty loud.
those things are loud as heck.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're loud as heck. Nice. You got some flow meters in there.
see down in there. It's all cram packed in there with the Abiz.
So Kirk had a question. I ordered a Jabo return pump. Uh, if it's a DC pump, Kirk, it should have the ability to adjust the flow. That's the whole point of typically getting a DC pump is being able to adjust the flow. I don't know. You could always put, a valve on there to adjust the flow as well. Um, those would be my two best guesses there. So I see you got a calcium reactor there. Is that what kind of calcium reactor is that guy?
That's a turn the light on. That is a Reef Octopus dual chamber 8-inch calcium reactor with the
Wow.
Kamar dosing pump and the electronic doser. You have 10 gallon or 10-pound CO2 tank,
There you
one
go.
spare. So as soon as it's ready, I just switch it out.
So let me look at your tank here. I'm going to show off your Apex system here in a second. Um,
Okay.
but what do you run your pH in the tank at?
You can look at that. It should be like 8 point something, 8.2 or 5.
Man, you are.
It's
I don't know
column
how
down,
you're.
down middle column down the center, not the center.
Yeah, I
Is where
see
my
it.
SPPH.
I don't know how you're getting your. You know, I had this conversation with a couple people in the last couple weeks. As I'm sure you know, I switched from a calcium reactor to dosing now,
Right,
and my pH on a good day would get to 7.85, 7.9 on a good day.
right.
And since I switched to dosing every day now, it's 8.1 to 8.2 every day.
Yeah.
So my
I,
biggest question for you is how are you getting that higher pH with the calcium reactor?
well, so what I did do is for some reason I was getting really good, and I do have a line um, that runs outside. So I used to have this line right here running outside, but it's like 20, maybe 18 feet away, and I was getting pretty good pH. For some reason, it started to drop. So I've tried to, or not tried, but I've installed a CO2 reactor or
Scrubber. That's what I had to
scrubber.
do too.
I put in the scrubber. I have it recirculating. So this is the intake right here of the scrubber, and
Okay.
here is, or excuse me, this is the intake, and then no, excuse me, this is fresh air. This is all my old fresh air going outside, feeding it, and then this is the intake of the CO2 scrubber. So it circulates in here.
Oh, that's the thing to do. That's what I've been telling people. I think the CO2 scrubber is a must with a calcium reactor to maintain that pH. I tried it. It wasn't working for me. Now, I don't know. I'm not going to, pass blame on anybody other than myself. But, my calcium reactor was an automatic calcium reactor. It was dumping a lot of high alkalinity water. And unlike yours, which is on a Camor, which is, a slow drip, I believe that it was because of my calcium reactor. So that's why I switched to dosing. I couldn't
If
deal with it anymore.
if you look at my history of my pH, I just changed the media yesterday or
Yeah, I can
last night.
see it went from
And so it did
7.9.
bump up a little bit, but if I keep dates, on everything. Um, right there, I hadn't changed. I don't know if you can see that or not, but December is the last time I changed it. And so it was definitely expelled. And so my pH is not that bad, even without the media. And so it's been running since December with that media in it, and I'm sure it was all purple when I took it out.
Yeah, see, my media stays white all the time. So I don't know, and I'm doing recirculating just like you.
Really?
So either I don't have a lot of CO2 or what, I don't know what it is, but I can tell you the calcium reactor. I woke up one day and my tank was at 7.4. So I was like, I'm done with this thing. And again, it could have been my fault. I'm not going to blame myself because I think it was just my reactor did something weird and I just couldn't trust it anymore. So I just switched to dosing. Now, I do want to mention this to people on the stream. My tank is a 100-gallon tank. I'm able to switch to dosing without any issues. If you have a large tank, such as Brian or a couple people, I don't think dosing is the right way to go. Even if you're having trouble with pH, I think you're just gonna be spending so much money on additives when it's all said and done. So I still believe in calcium reactors. I still believe calcium reactors are a great piece of equipment. But if you have a small tank, I don't think I think it's overkill, and that's what I'm starting to realize. Since I've had four different calcium reactors over the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, and I'd never dosed before, and I just like, you know what, I'm gonna try dosing, and my tank's been stable, and the pH has been stable, and I am so happy. So what can I say? All right, we got a bunch of questions. Let me get to some of them. Someone asked what media you're using. I'm assuming that's Carib Sea. It looked like Carib Sea. What are you
Which
using?
media?
The calcium reactor media.
Oh yeah, calcium rector media is reborn, and
Oh, it's
the
Reborn.
magnesium. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Coral Lover said I have a PM1, was monitoring pH in calcium reactor, and after a power outage, it doesn't work anymore. Um, yeah, it could be an addressing issue. Man, green light is on but blinking. I would have to say that it's an addressing issue. I can. I don't know if Brian's familiar how to do this, but there's a way to adjust the addressing on them and resetting them. You have to get into the Telnet portal to do that.
I just
Uh,
normally unplug them and plug them back in. Unplug them for 30 seconds.
yeah, that would be my suggestion to Coral Lovers here, but I have a feeling he's having an addressing issue.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, Coral Lovers, if you want to PM me after the stream on Facebook, I can tell you how to do that. It's a little more complex than I can explain on the stream. Let's see. How much of a swing is your temperature? Do you feel the need for a chiller with all the equipment? Do you have a chiller? I didn't see a chiller.
No, I don't have a chiller. What I do have, it's not installed on my sump right now, but I do have a fan, and I go show you what I'm telling you about it. I do have a fan that is on my sits on my tank. I don't need it until right in the dead of winter. And one reason, or excuse me, with summer, one reason why I do need it is because my air conditioner does not keep up. And so this is the fan I use,
Okay.
and it just stays right there.
Yeah,
And
fans will work, everyone.
yep, and I just do evaporated cooling. And I don't know if you noticed upstairs underneath my Kessels, I have some computer fans to help a little.
Okay.
I have an exhaust fan also up there that will exhaust, and it's on a humidity controlled. So when the full canopy's on, all four sides, it doesn't build up humidity.
Yeah, guys, for everyone that's watching, fans will do it. I mean, I have a chiller on all my tanks, but I'm in Arizona. But for most people, a fan will do it. Yeah, Cardiff Reefer, he said that's a 8 foot sump, right?
Correct. 8 foot,
That's insane.
100 gallons.
Someone asked, let's see, let me go up a little bit here. He has a Trident, so he's testing his parameters, I'm assuming, every couple hours on your Trident.
Yeah, there's the Trident. I have a
Uh,
with it that my my magnesium's not testing. I'm working with Neptune right now to find out why it's not working.
Okay. Calcium effluent output going to Kato reactor. I tried that, Ravi, and that did not work for me. I did try that. Unfortunately, that did not work. Some people they say it works. Devin asked how long your CO2 scrubbing media lasts. Sounds like it lasts about 4 months, huh? Four or
Well,
five
no,
months?
because it was expended, and I just never changed it. But I don't know if you can see my dates, maybe not. But I changed it 9/21, 10/4, 12/4, and then so about a month, 12/31.
Oh wow.
So I'm going through it about a month with the
Okay.
big scrubber.
Yeah, it's
Um,
interesting you say that because BRS, for instance, touts on saying that it will last a lot longer than a month. For me, I've had it last for 5 or 6 months. So I'm wondering, and again, I'm just guessing, you wouldn't happen to have like an air leak or something, would you? Sounds like it should last a lot longer on a recirculating
you
method.
would think, but I don't think I do. I mean, I do have fresh air coming into it from outside, and then yeah, it's recirculating through the skimmer. So
I'm
I'm
wondering
not
if
I'm
the
not sure.
fresh air, I'm wondering if the fresh air is causing it to deplete faster.
That
Now,
could be pulling
my
outside.
yeah, my recirculating has literally recirculating. There's nothing going in or out of it other than the skimmer. So, and that's how I've seen it done. But then again, I've also seen it done your way with like a T, where someone will have incoming air come out of like the outside, and then they'll T it, and then they'll have like a valve to adjust it.
I mean,
Um,
the air coming outside, there's no suction at all on that. It's just sitting there. So if and one thing I did do is look on the top of there, I put plugs in. So if it because when this sucks, the intake, it does actually would suck air through here. So maybe that is it. If I pop these off and I get room air instead of outside air, maybe it would change it.
yeah. Mine go, yeah, yeah. A couple people are mentioning theirs goes 5, 4, 6 months. So I'm
Mm.
curious. Yeah, I'm
How big's the
curious.
tank?
I'm not sure, guy. You guys
That
asked
doesn't
me.
matter.
Yeah, maybe because they have a smaller tank. Like me, I have a smaller tank too. Um, that's interesting that it only lasts a month. But you know what? Every tank's different, so you never know.
Yeah.
How big is this? Oh, I already said that. Cardiff, yeah, I have a Fuge. Well, I have a Cato reactor now. I got rid of my Fuge, so I have a Cato reactor now. I'm going to show it off here in a bit when we get to the computer. But I do have a Cato reactor now. Um, I don't have the option for super chat because I'm not cool enough. I need like 1,000 subscribers to get a super chat, fellow reefer. I'm still new to this, unfortunately. I gotta keep getting more people. Let's see. Fresh air, blah 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 blah. A lot of people like your setup, by the way. I don't know if you're able to see the stream, but they're
Not on
all
my phone.
yeah, they're all giving you props. Aquamax makes really good products, fellow reefer. I've never bought an Aquamax product I didn't like. Um, how are you folks dealing with turning on feed mode from Apex with Ecotech pumps if using both apps? You just plug it. You got to plug it into a. Oh, there's our stream. You got to plug it into a outlet and just have it turn off. There's no other way you can do it. You can't adjust the speed, for instance, on an Ecotech pump using an Apex. So you would need to have it on outlet, and you would need to turn it off on a feed. Um, let's see. Yeah, Corey has a 120 gallon. Gary has a yeah. So Brian's got a 400 gallon tank there. So there's a chance that his CO2 is just is depleting faster just because of such a large tank. You know, it's definitely possible. Um, yeah, and he probably has to pull a lot of CO2 out of that calcium reactor. You got a big calcium reactor too. So,
I'm only pumping in because I don't have a lot of SPS. I think my Comar dosing pump is like 15. It's like 15
oh
mils per
wow.
second. However, it's a 15, whatever that is. I bought the Wi-Fi one. I suggest getting the Wi-Fi one because I like automation and you can change it
Yeah.
when you're outside the home instead of the Versa.
Yeah, the you mentioned something that I didn't think about, but the reason your pH is so high is because you're only dosing 15 milliliters a minute. I was at about 40 milliliters a minute, and
Yeah.
I have a ton of SPS,
Yes,
and I
that
have
can
two
be it.
clams. So let's see. Do I see a pH bump when running my Kato reactor? I would have to say yes. Once I started running a Fuge, that really helped. I'm going to switch Brian's tank over here, so give me a moment. So Brian's Apex is insane to say the least. Someone asked what you're running your alk and calcium and mag at. Now you had mentioned their mag is not working properly right now, but people can see your alk and your calcium right here.
Right.
Um, so you run it a little bit on the higher eights, it looks like, a calcium right around the middle, 440 ish, typically.
Yeah.
Someone was
Yep.
asking that. Um, yeah,
As
John,
I understand it, the higher nutrients you have, the higher alk you can run. And opposite.
that's right.
I don't know if that's okay. That is
That
true.
is true.
So
So
I do have high nutrients. I do feed a lot.
so I've been I've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for probably 20 plus years, and everything I've ever read about is I get a lot of people that will run their tanks at very high alkalinity, like 11 or 12. And they'll tell me all the time, like I'll get a message, all my acroporas are brown or they're white or they're not getting, and it's nutrients, 100% nutrients. You lower that alkalinity down to 8 or 6, and you'll notice your acros start doing a lot better. Um, if you're going to have a high alkalinity, you're going to need to have a high nutrient level. It's just, you're going to have to. The acros are going to need more nutrients because they're growing faster at a higher alkalinity, and that's how it works. Um, if you look at the ocean has an alkalinity of about 7. So think about it like that. We're raising our alkalinity in our tanks because we want faster growth in the ocean, so that's why people run their alkalinity at 9 and 8s. But if you don't have nutrients to feed them, then they're not going to grow. So Garrett, looking at his Apex dashboard makes me so nervous. That's why my
I know.
Apex and Trident is still in the box. Okay, Garrett, let me explain something to you. There are people such as me and Brian that are psychotic automation freaks, and then there are the normal people. Um, Apex can be very simple and extremely simplified, and then you get psychotic people like me and Brian. It's just there's one or two. So don't get nervous looking at Brian's dashboard. Don't get nervous looking at my dashboard. Um, I am a computer programmer. That's what I do for a living. This stuff is very simple for me. I'm assuming Brian has found this to be simple for him too. That's why he has all this stuff.
No, it's been tough. I've had a lot of help from you and other friends to help me with the
Complex
really
stuff.
troublesome stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Neptune.
Yeah.
I just turned on my auto feeder. I have a lot of frozen food, so we're going to see maybe some food come out.
Oh, cool.
But I was programming, changing the time. But anyway, yeah, it's intimidating, and you got to grow into it.
And having a programming background, I find it to be very simple for me. But to answer Garrett's nervousness, you can have a very basic Apex system. Tridents are very easy by themselves. It's not complex. You plug it in, you follow the directions, and you're done. I don't.
Here's a feeding.
Oh, nice. I can see it. Yeah. So that's the brine shrimp then?
Yeah, that's the Hikari brine shrimp with spirulina in it.
That's so cool. Is that an Apex camera or connected to the Apex? I'm not exactly sure what Ravi's talking
No,
about.
it does come out of the closed loop right here. You can see these closed loop ports.
That's cool.
I have four in one in each corner. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
It's okay. There's just a number of people saying some stuff. Corey, yeah, I've said this many times. People like to have these high, very high alkalinity because they read online, which is true, that a higher alkalinity will provide better growth. That's 100% correct. But you have to supplement your corals with aminos and proper nutrients to sustain that, and that's very difficult for most people. I mean, we're talking a lot of nutrients you would need. Okay, so I recommend everybody on the stream strive for an 8 to 9 DKH, and you will usually get good growth, and you will get usually very good coloration at that number. Once you start using, it's not that bad. I'm loving it, and especially thank you. Da, 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 it's very, yeah, fellow reefer, thank you for that. Yeah, I try to do little basic videos for most people. Any way to connect a Waze camera? Yes, I believe there is a way to connect a Waze camera. Um, for those that don't know, if you want to have a camera on your Apex, it has to support either an RTSP feed or a URL feed, and most cameras don't do that. They don't let you into their cameras. Um, does anyone use a pump to dose thawed frozen food? So
That's what I'm doing.
that's basically what he's doing. Yeah, I'll just say that. Yeah, Garrett likes your port that you just showed. I think it's awesome too.
Yeah, that wall was in the way of the tank, so I put a porthole in it.
That's awesome.
I like nautical stuff. If you notice around the house, I have a lot of nautical.
Yeah. Do you have a background in that at all?
A background in what?
Like sailing or anything like that?
Oh no, I love sailing, but no, I do not. I'm not in the military or anything like that. I love sailing.
Oh, yeah. I hate sailing. I get
I love the love, right?
I get extreme seasickness, like
Oh,
extreme seasickness. It just runs in my family, unfortunately. Brightwell coral aminos do not need to be refrigerated. Um, but they don't make very large containers, and I think you have to. I know a couple people out there that have large coral amino containers, but I use AcroPower, and I've been very happy with it. Do you dose aminos, Brian?
no, I have bought them, but I haven't done it yet. If you notice in that fridge, there's some aminos in there, and what my plan is I'm going to put a tea in my intake. Let me show you real quick. I'm going to put a. I already have one tea right here, but I'm going to put in another tea right here and use this doser for aminos.
Okay. Yeah, and you're
And so
refrigerating
I'm
it.
going to start doing that. It doesn't matter for it doesn't need to be refrigerated, but I have the
No.
dosing pump empty. Might as well use it.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I use AcroPower. I've been using it for many years, and I do notice a big difference dosing aminos. Now, as I said earlier to everyone, you're going to have to dose a lot more aminos if you are trying to maintain a higher alkalinity. So just remember that. If you have an alkalinity of 12, for instance, you're going to have to dose a lot more aminos to maintain those corals. But if you're dosing, or if you're keeping your alkalinity at 8.5 like I do, you don't have to dose a lot of aminos. I mean, that's just, and to Brian's point, he's feeding frozen food that has nutrients and vitamins in it already. So
Correct.
there's really not a large need for him to do aminos. I mean, yes, it's a good idea, but he's already feeding something that has aminos in it.
That's a
Um,
good point.
what type of difference do you notice? So the specific thing I notice, Devin, is extension on my polyps, specifically my acropora. I've never seen better extension since I started dosing aminos. I mean, it's amazing. Is that a temp probe in the fridge? I believe
It
that is
is.
a temp
I
probe.
just pointed that out. I have all my fridges have temp probes because the food requires a 43-degree temperature, and I want to know if the fridge ever fails. That is I don't know if you can see that fan. I do have a fan in this cabinet. In the summertime, it gets hot, and blows cool air into the fridge area to keep it cooler because
Okay.
it can get 90 degrees down here in the summertime.
Yeah, I bet.
And the fridge needs to keep cool. And so, yes, I have this. I also have a leak sensor. I have 20 of these leak sensors through my house that is
There
going
you
through the
go.
breakout box. And I get those on eBay. There's one there. There's another one here.
Yeah.
They're scattered all through my house. I've even underneath my sink, my kitchen sink, my washer, everywhere.
Yeah, I have a lot of leak sensors too. Yeah, Aaron has a good point there about aminos. Start slow with aminos. Don't start dumping a ton in there. Um, you have to do some ICP testing just to see kind of where your trace elements are. But typically, aminos, you can't. I mean, Acro Power, for instance, if you overdose it, it's not going to kill your whole tank, you know. Um, but he's got a good point there. Let me answer a couple more questions. I'm trying to follow some of this stuff. I have a chalice coral in my main tank, and when I frag it and move it to my frag tank, it turns brown. Um, Now this is definitely an area of reefing that I don't know a lot about, so I'm gonna call on some people on the chat to maybe chime in. When you cut or when you frag specific corals, such as acans, such as the chalice coral, you need to repair the tissue. I'm not familiar, like I said, with this, so I'm kind of throwing my opinion out there. So I believe when you cut something like that, like a chalice, you need to soak it in some type of revitalize or repair serum, I believe, or else they have trouble kind of getting back to where they were. And like I said, I want people to reply if I'm accurate in that statement. Now, when you cut an SPS, that's a different story. SPS, you can just cut them and just throw them in, and they'll be fine. But most soft tissue corals, you can't just cut them and then them be okay. Usually, you're going to have to soak them in some type of revitalize or whatever. Let me see what else. Is the lighting the same? That's a good point, Corey. Yeah, if the lighting is different from one tank to another, yeah, it's going to brown out. Iodine dip, then put the water back for a couple of days. Yeah, see, a lot of people are saying iodine dip, coral lovers. I think whenever you cut a coral, you got to be careful about damaging it. All my zoas are looking sad, but all my uppests. Okay, so I think his name is folks. I don't know how to say his name. Okay, let me tell you a story about zoas. First of all, how many zoas do you have? Because if you have a lot of zoas, what I'm about to say is difficult. Most of the time, when zoas aren't doing good, it's for two reasons. First reason is you don't have enough iodine in the tank. So we want to check your iodine. The second reason that zoas are doing bad is there is a pest in them. There is something that's eating them. So you need to get a microscope. You need to get, not a microscope, like a magnifying glass. Look really closely at them. See if you see any type of pests on them. If you do, you need to pull them and you need to dip them, typically in iodine or something that'll kill the pests. Generally, a freshwater dip is also a good idea. Um, I can tell you with experience, I've had many zoas in the past, and iodine was the trick. Um, if you don't have enough iodine in your tank, zoas have difficult difficulty not only growing but looking nice and big. I got zoas in my nano that weren't opening for months. I took them all out. I dipped them in an iodine dip. I actually used Brightwell Lugals, and ever since they've been popping. So, unfolks or o folks, I don't know how to say your name. Those are my two suggestions. Let's see. I haven't seen any pests, and I've dipped them in hydrogen peroxide. Sounds like yes. So, unfolks, you want to dip them in iodine. Hydrogen peroxide is helpful. It'll typically only kill algae. Generally won't kill a lot of pests, hydrogen peroxide. Um, add to your, I don't know what that guy's saying. Yeah, Howard had a had another suggestion. There could be something that's eating your zoas. Some fish eat zoas. So, all
Yes,
right.
I've heard that blue tangs can eat zoas as they get older. I haven't experienced that yet with mine,
Yep,
but I'm waiting for the day.
they definitely will eat them. So there could be something eating them, but he's saying that they're shrinking and melting. So typically, shrinking and melting is due to iodine deficiency, or like I said, there's something that's bothering them. Zoas are very hardy. You can usually throw them in a corner of a tank with no light and they'll do fine. So it's generally due to, like I said, there's a pest or iodine. Those are my two suggestions. So I'm going to switch over to your Apex here, but I wanted to show some people a few things, and then I want to go over. I don't know how long we've been at. We've only about an hour, so we got some time still. Um, Let me give me a second, guys. I'm going to move over and show you some cool stuff. Well, I think it's cool. If I could find it. For those that don't know, I'm selling my calcium reactor, by the way.
How much?
$1,000.
Ooh, that's a pretty
$1,000.
good deal. Is that like half price?
Just about. I'm selling it with the CO2 tank and the regulator.
Wow.
It's a pretty good price. All right, guys, hold on. I got to open up a different screen here.
As you've been talking, I don't know if you noticed, I've been walking around my house just showing it different stuff, and
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm sure people are. There's been a few comments on different things you've been showing. Everyone likes the porthole, um, but unfortunately, I don't have that screen open, so I'm bouncing back and forth. So people were asking about my Kato reactor. I'm going to show people my Kato reactor. Um, it's really cool. I think it's really cool. If I can just get the picture pulled up here. So for those that have entered the contest, we definitely have enough people, which is wonderful. I appreciate everybody for coming. But you do have to ask a question. So for people that have been in the stream that haven't asked a question, and Desert Reef Aquatics, your questions don't count because they're stupid. But anybody else that asks a question that's a good question, or even a normal question, unlike Desert Reef Aquatics, um, you will be entered into the contest. Man, I'm having trouble finding this picture. Anyway, all right, where is he? I'm waiting for him to say something stupid. Um, could be Zoa eating spiders. Yeah, Rogue, that's exactly what I think it is. I think he has a Zoa eating nudibranch in there, and they're really easy to see with a magnifying glass. Howard, you should definitely not be afraid to switch from an Apex Light to an EL. I think you're going to really like the EL over the Apex Light. Brian, what do you run in? Do you have a classic or a regular one or a
regular
newer one?
216,
Okay.
the newest one.
Yeah.
I still run my classic though. I'm using that for temperature for my quarantine tank fridge because I didn't want to buy another PM1 or 2.
Yeah. 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 The
And I might as well keep
EL.
it. It has the program on it, so if I ever have an issue, it's already basically set up to run stuff.
Yeah, I have a backup unit that every time I make a change, I load the backup to the backup unit, just in case. But Howard, I think there's so many good things about the EL over the Apex Lite. Um, there's so many things. There is the speed. The difference in speed is just amazing. It's so much faster. Um, you get to do all of your configurations from the Fusion dashboard, whereas with the Classic or the Lite, you have to go to the stupid other thing to make any changes. With the Lite, it's all done in Fusion, which is fantastic. Obviously, with the newer units, you can use the newer products like a Trident, like a wave pump, things that you can't use on the Classic can be used on the new one. Aaron asked if you're running any type of battery backups.
No, I have a generator.
Oh, well, there you go.
I wish Neptune would come out with one for their wave pumps. That'd be nice, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
they need to come up. I bother Terrence every stream of his I've been to, and every single stream, all I do is type in 3 times TDS meters, TDS meters, TDS every single time.
Oh, did I show you my TDS meter? Let me walk back downstairs while you talk, and I'll show it to you.
Okay. I recommend starting an education. Where do you recommend starting my education at setting up my Apex? Um, well, Garrett, I have my own videos that I've put on. They're more, I wouldn't say they're advanced, but they're basic programming education. So take a look at my videos. Um, there's so many things out there, Garrett. If you go to Reef, there is documentation on how to get the Apex going. Um, you want to really start to learn tasks. If you can really get used to tasks, Garrett, and I'm going to show you here on Brian's system where tasks are. If you look right here and I click on this button, they have tons of tasks, and all you do is click on the task and follow the directions, and you'll be fine. And this will get you pretty much going on anything you need to go. Good way to clean optical sensors. I use just some wipes, some what do you call them? Clorox wipes. Yeah, Clorox, whatever they are.
I use an acrylic algae pad.
There you go. That's fine too. I'm
Yeah,
curious
just
how much of pH you get from
these
a
right
clean.
here.
Let me zoom you in because right now everyone's seeing your Apex. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. So I just use these algae pads right here to clean my optical sensors.
Perfect.
And then here's the monitor that I was telling you about that you can change that user changeable to down to 1 TDS, and it alarms if it senses 1 TDS or above.
That's awesome. Now, here's my problem with that. Now, I think it's great, don't get me wrong, but for people that aren't near their tank often or, need to be away from it, I think that Neptune needs to make something that's able to read the TDS and say, hey, your TDS is low. But that's great. That's really
I
great to have.
I agree, and I'm right in the process right now of changing out the speaker so it's a fire alarm speaker. And my smart thing, my smart thing has a sensor that will sense fire alarm. And so if my fire alarm or my home alarm goes off in my house, I'll get a text, and also hopefully this.
That would be great.
So I'm working on the design now to see if I can come up with it and get it correct, get it so it works. Also, I want a fire alarm or a water alarm would be the same because I think it senses water alarms. Is that hooks up to my leak sensors, so in case I'm not home and the kids are, they can hear a water alarm, verbal water alarm speaker go off if my leak sensors go off, and it'll
Yeah,
also
that's great. That's exactly what I'm trying to accomplish in my house. I just haven't got to it yet. I just have to
yeah.
run some wires. Desert Reef Aquatics has decided to talk crap as usual. Coral lovers, what about battery backup for your Apex base unit? I just use an APC computer backup, and that works fine. I think that's fine. So as long as your Apex base unit is on, your EB8 or whatever you're using, and that's plugged into a battery backup, that's all you need. Because if the power goes out, you just need that to maintain, along with your internet. By the way, I recommend a battery backup for your internet in conjunction with your Apex, and it will alert you if your power goes out. I did a whole video on that, Coral lovers. If you look at my video on power management and how to do that, I did a whole video on how to do that. Um, yep, I'm classic. That's right, Desert Reef. I'll definitely check out your videos. Uh, thank you, Garrett. I just got the ATK2 optical sensors for audio, a solenoid, and a blah 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 in the basement. And can you use two separate FMM, and one for tank and one for basement? Yeah, absolutely. You could use two separate FMM modules. The ATKs can be programmed however you want using the Apex software. Um, so yeah, you could absolutely do that. How long will my backup run? About an hour and roughly an hour and a half. Okay, Desert Reef, here we go. See, I was being good, not making jokes, and then you called my question stupid. Okay. Hey, you haven't asked a question, stupid. Um, so where's my list of people that are going to be entered in the contest? I need to delete Desert Reef Aquatics. Where is he? Oh, he's not even on the list yet. That's right, because he hasn't asked a question. Now there's a fight going on now in this chat. Oh boy. All right, so anybody have questions for Brian while we got him here on his setup? Any specific questions? Unfortunately, he's been walking around showing his tank, and I haven't been watching. Been trying to follow the fights in our chat. Um, so let's see. You're running typical pH about 6.5 in your calcium reactor. For those out there, I think that's a perfect number. I don't recommend anyone going below about 6.2. Reborn is pretty good at keeping stable at about 6.0, but I don't recommend anybody going below 6.2. Your ORP is high. I'm surprised you got it. You don't run ozone, do you?
I do not.
Wow, that's a pretty good ORP for a non-ozone tank. So, congratulations. You run carbon or anything?
I do run carbon. Yeah, I run about 6 cups of carbon about at once a month. If you
Okay.
look at my CB flow, carbon flow on my Apex, it's at like at 100 gallons an hour. And I when it reaches like 20, when it's starting to get plugged up, I just
Mhm.
replace it. That's how I know.
So for those out there, I think it was last week, people were asking about ORP. And the way that you're going to get your ORP up is by carbon or ozone. Um, ORP, I'm not going to go over exactly what ORP is, but there's so much documentation on it. But to get a higher ORP and clearer tank, essentially, you need something to remove organics or dissolved organics, and ORP, ozone, or carbon typically will produce that. Um, Also, having a super clean tank will get you a higher ORP. And when I mean super clean tank, I mean like very low nutrients, um, you know, just a lot of stuff that requires you to have a super clean tank. Yeah, Corey, your ORP is 412. I'm gonna say go out and get an ORP packet and toss it in an ORP packet and confirm that your ORP probe is not broken. Because 412 with no ozone or carbon seems a little strange. 400 is a pretty high ORP for a tank not running ozone or carbon. Um,
Corey also asked what my electric bill is. You can show the Apex and see it, but it's about $100 a month.
oh wow. How long has the tank been set up? Someone asked.
It's going on its 4th year since January.
Very cool. Aaron, I'm here to support Derek because he is one of my best friends. Yeah, I know, Aaron. Desert Reef loves to come in here and mess with me. Yeah, Daniel, we did see the full sump. It's pretty cool. I got an ATK and a solenoid, but only. Oh man, I'm having trouble reading. I've had. I got a. I just got new glasses. But anyway, but only one of the one link, which is the best to run for the plug bar via the trans. Or is there a better way? I don't really want to buy a one link. I think Eddie, you got those confused. The solenoid and the pump don't use one link. They use the 24 volt. Um, So yes, you could just buy a transformer. You want to buy a 24 volt. I think it's 3 amp. It might be 1.5 amp, and you can plug that right into your ATK pump, and then plug that right into a plug, and that will turn on and off the pump or solenoid. I think that's what you're asking, Eddie. Um, so everyone's asking how your nutrients are, your NO3 and PO4.
So my phosphates are about 0.05 to zero point 0.1, sometimes 0.2,
Okay.
and my nitrates are around two or so.
Yeah, and
You
he's
can actually go
running.
look at you can go look on my Apex, and I log it. Even though my Trident, or even though my Trident does all three, I still log it once in a while in my Apex. And
That's
if I
very
ever
good.
change my dosing pump, I log what I change my dosing pump to. Any notes that I do, I still use the Apex logging system.
Yeah, I have a reef bot, unfortunately, but I have a reef bot.
I would like to get a reef bot for that, but I don't know. Is it worth that price of that and the frustration to get those
uh, I'm not
two
allowed to
readings?
talk. I'm not allowed to talk about it on a stream anymore. Let's see. Let's see. For people asking, yeah, that's a good point, Aaron. Larry, again, I'm gonna say something's wrong with your ORP probe, and I'm only saying this because tanks typically can't have a 435 ORP without doing something. I would buy those. They make these little pinpoint ORP packets. They're like $2. Grab one, put your ORP probe in there, and see if it registers correctly. If it's not, then something's wrong with your ORP probe. I'm just curious how you're getting 435 without doing anything. That's a very
I need
high
to do that too
ORP.
myself. That's a good idea. I do have already there. I just need to test it. See if my OR. I haven't messed with ORP for 3 years.
Yeah, there might be something wrong with yours.
It might be reading wrong.
Yeah, because even above 400 is very, very tough to get
Yeah.
without, specific equipment. Um, Corey says my ORP was brand new last month. Well, again, Corey, I could be wrong. I'm not always right. You could have interference in the probe. There could be many things, or I could be wrong, and somehow magically your ORP is that high with doing nothing, which is great. Don't get me wrong. That's fantastic. You want a high ORP. It's interesting that it's so high. Um, let's see. What are your hatches on the front of his? Oh, we're going to talk about that in a second. Someone asked a real specific question about your setup. Which fridge do you use?
So I'm not particular on the fridge. It's just the size is what really matters.
So any little fridge, basically.
Yeah, yeah, just whatever fits in there. The fridge I have, I bought it actually used, and it's who knows how old it is. The On the wall tank, it's a main fridge that I use, and then the little fridge I just bought on Amazon, just a little 6-pack fridge.
Very cool.
These doors are just aesthetics, and also I can reach in there, but they're like cannon doors.
That's really cool, man.
The theme. And when the white lights aren't on, you can see the flame lights, and they glow at night, like people are living under there.
It's really cool. Yeah, so Rogue's ORP is 274. That's about standard for a tank that's not doing anything. About 250 to 300. Interference, I should check. Yeah, see, that's both ATA. I'm a one link connection, the ATA pump into the FML, but the solenoid I have nowhere to plug in without cutting the wire. Yeah, you'd have to splice it, Eddie. That's really the only way to do it without buying a one link, like you said. But splicing wires, I do it for a living. It's really easy. Just splice it, get some bean connectors, or they have them at Home Depot. Any type of splicing. Cardiff Reefer was asking your tip for drilling your fridge. Any tips for that?
Well, I would what I would do is I would go really slow, and you'd want to penetrate just the steel first, with your pilot bit, because you're going to use a hole saw, and just barely penetrate the steel casing. Then poke something in there for the styrofoam and make sure there's not a coolant line all the way through.
Yeah.
And use something that, like I call it a pokey stick. It's bent and has a hook on it, and you can reach around and just make sure that there's no coolant lines that you could hit. Because I ruined a $200 fridge lately.
Yeah, you can use a hanger. You can use a coat hanger.
Yes, hanger would work great.
Yeah. Someone asked, "What's a tip for a new reefer?" I think is what he had asked. A good tip for a new reefer. Um, a good tip for a new reefer: buy an ATO. that's that's my best tip right now for a new reefer. I found when I got my first fish tank, and I don't know about you, Brian, but I hated having to see the water line keep dropping on my tank and having to fill it every day. Buy an ATO. That's my first. I would say that's my first thing. So what do you think?
I agree. Definitely ATO. Me personally, an Apex is a must. Even,
Yeah.
I have a friend that has it's a 26-gallon tank, and like an all-in-one tank, and he has over $1,500 of coral in it.
Oh wow.
And if that dies, even that small a tank, if it dies, the Apex would pay for itself.
Agreed. And I've always been saying that. And there's a number of people that will come up to me or talk to me and go, "I'm not buying an Apex. There's no reason to have one."
Right. I mean,
And
buy a classic. A used classic is a couple of $100, I mean, or less.
the fact, unfortunately, the fact is, um, failures happen, and big failures will emotionally drain you. Not only, especially if you spent a lot of money on your tank, but if you have a failure and you could have bought $100 Apex to fix that or catch that failure, I think the $100 is well justified. And again, let me repeat that. Brian and me both believe you can find an Apex online for $100. So
Yes,
for
definitely.
those that are all like, they're not $100, you can find one online for $100. Trust me.
Yeah.
Best tip is quarantine your fish. I 100% agree with that, Desert Reef Aquatics. That's a good tip for new reefers. Quarantine your fish.
Definitely. I didn't
Uh,
quarantine for like the first year and then started it.
yeah, it's pretty important. Aside from equipment, as I agreed, my sons. Yeah, even a 16 gallon. I agree. Have an ATO on it. Absolutely.
Definitely.
ATO is huge. An Apex, Jason, that's a little nuts, but you know what? If it makes you feel better and you know you have the peace of mind that if something happens to that tank, you'll know. I think it's worth it. Um, for those that don't know, I have a 7 gallon Nano right here, and it's on my Apex. So you know,
Yeah. So my ATO, I mentioned this before. My ATO um, fills all three tanks: my quarantine tank, my main tank, and my wall tank. One pump.
yeah, I have people yell at me all the time. Why do you have one Apex to feed 3 tanks? And I don't see the point of having an Apex on every fish tank, especially in a house. Like I could understand if you have a commercial building and you have 20 tanks, have an Apex on 4 tanks at a time. But in a house, you only need one Apex. I don't know. That's been my opinion.
Until you reach 49 modules, and
Yeah,
I'm at
well,
31 and about ready to go to 33.
yeah, that's true. Now I have to agree with Desert Reef. That's correct, Aaron. Now you have to agree with Aaron. I love how both of their names are Aaron. Um, which would be better to run for carbon dosing, sulfur reactor or biopellet reactor? That's a really good question, Carrie Reefer. You know, I don't know about you guys out there, but I have had zero success with biopellet reactors. They always get clogged. The biopellets never spin properly. It drives me insane. Sulfur reactors have been around for 20 something years. They work really well. They are typically quite expensive. Um, My suggestion, honestly, Carrie, is to put some vodka or put some form of carbon dosing on a doser and dose it that way. That would be my suggestion for carbon dosing. Um, I just don't like biopellets, and I never have. Um, and Aaron just made a good point. Sulfur reactors typically will be best for nitrates. They don't always do well for phosphates. Generally, they don't do much at all for phosphates. Um, I would say, what I just did is the best thing I could ever mention to people, which is a Cato reactor. I have a Cato reactor and I love it. So that's my opinion on nutrient control. Brian, you have a gigantic sump with I saw macroalgae, so you're doing just
Yeah, I have
fine.
4 different kinds of algae.
Yeah. Corey, you're running biopellets. That's awesome, man. Like I said, some people have had success with biopellets. It really depends on the biopellet reactor that you buy. Some of them just suck. Some of them are really good at churning properly. Um, I don't know. I never had success with biopellets. That's just been my opinion. They just would get clogged and stuck together all the time, and then they wouldn't spin, and then they wouldn't do anything. Um, how do you connect the one ATO to three tanks? So
So
it's
I
really
just
it's
walked through there. I just walked through and showed you on my wall tank it's called the marriage saver. I can't remember the name of it, but I have the ATO pump in my freshwater vat right there. And when it turns on, when the sump needs water, I have it teed off to 2 different tanks. And what happens is right now this ATO is full because it's green. I hook up the power to that marriage saver that turns off with the lights on and off. So it needs to be reset every day. And so when my sump requires water and those are blinking with the lights on, the water goes to the 2 tanks before the sump. I have a ball valve on the ATO coming into my sump that I have lower, so it back pressures and puts water first in the wall tank and in the quarantine tank.
wow. Yeah, so for me, and I don't know if I think people have seen it on my one of my videos, but I have an ATO reservoir, and I drilled 3 holes in the bottom of it, and I put bulkheads at the bottom of the tank, and then I have those running through liter meter pumps that I have always on every stream. I almost mention liter meter. They're terrific little pumps. So these little pumps plug into each one of my inputs of my reservoir, and they're plugged into my apex. And when they turn on, they take water out of the ATO and put it into my tank. That's it. That's how I do my ATOs. And those liter meter pumps will push water up to 100 feet. So I have them running in my attic all the way to my other tank. Um, so what about vinegar on dosing unit? Would it be effective in keeping nitrates at bay? Absolutely. Vinegar. Wait a second. Do not dose vinegar.
No.
Wait a second. I saw that and I go, wait a second. Do not dose vinegar into your tank. Now, vodka is perfect. You can dose vodka, and that is carbon dosing. That is essentially what carbon dosing is. It will keep your nitrates and your phosphates at bay. Generally, more nitrates than phosphates, so you have to watch it. Do not dose vinegar into your tank. I want to say that one more time. Um, for those that don't know, vinegar is the way that you drop pH in a tank if your pH is too high. Um, but I remember one time my pH hit about 8.5 and I wanted to get it down. I literally, in a 100-gallon tank, this is not a joke, in a 100-gallon tank, I dosed roughly 3 milliliters, I think, of vinegar. It dropped my entire tank's pH to 8. So be really careful. Don't ever dose vinegar in your tank unless you know what you're doing.
You can clean parts with vinegar, and
Yes,
a little bit
absolutely.
can go in your tank, but not hurt anything.
Correct. But no, no, no. Don't ever unless you're specifically trying to drop pH, do not ever put vinegar in your tank. What is the best way to keep your water temperature at a constant level when running TV as a program temp pro to cut out the 75 and it cycles on and off after an hour? Um, Ben, I would have to see your sump. Me and Brian probably feel the same way. A big fan usually does the trick. A fan going over the top of the water is usually really good if you don't have a sump. Um, but that would be my best. Of course, you could always get a chiller, you know, but chillers are very expensive. Um,
Fan is a lot cheaper and just effective. Just to make sure you have an ATO.
yes. Well, anytime you're doing a fan, you're going to evaporate a lot of water. So just be aware of that. I love how you have all your towels over there for when you need a towel. You know, my
Oh yeah,
wife
I got plenty of towels.
my wife has specific towels for fish tank and specific towels for, bathing, and I always mix them up and I get in trouble.
Well, you see the washer, the sock washer.
That's
I did
awesome.
my sock. I did my socks once in our main washer. That's the only thing my wife ever told me that I could not do was wash my socks in our washer, and I kind of agreed with her. So I went out to Amazon, bought this washer, and I washed my socks right here in the sump room. And I hang dry them right here. I put Clorox with them, and they just hang right here and dry 24 hours or more.
Yeah, I love how you have your I wish I got to figure out a way to put like my towels by my fish stuff. I just always take the towels I'm not supposed to take. Um, Let me see. I'm looking at you got so much stuff here, buddy. You got so much stuff here. They
Yeah, I
really
really
need to
need some
make
cord management help, but I have over 30 something modules all on this little wall, and it's just plus my power box is on the back side of that wall. My power box to my house, so I
uh,
can't go inset anyway. I need some cord management help, definitely.
well, let me tell you about cord management real quick. For it's something I do for a living, so it's something that I deal with all the time. I think last stream I showed some people some of the crazy wire management I've seen. What you have to do, honestly, Brian, and I know it sounds terrible, is you have to dedicate an entire day, maybe even two, where your tank is going to be offline. Um, you got to rip out every single cord and put it on the ground and just start from scratch. That's really the only way you're going to get that wire management to look good. And I know it sucks, but that's what you got to
Yeah,
do. Don't
right.
don't honestly don't think of it as, oh, I'm just going to fix this and fix this. Rip it all out and just start from scratch, and you'll be happier by doing that.
One of my issues with cord management is like my optical sensors or anything. I'm like stretched to the limit on those cables, and so because they're far enough away,
Splicing.
and so I mean, I'm gonna just have to cut them and splice them, and then go buy a bunch of 1 foot USB cables and get rid of all my 6 foot and 8 foot cables will help a
Yeah,
lot.
I have a ton of extra 1 footers, just for, like you just said, when I need to add a module real quick and it's going to be right next to my power bar. For those that
Yeah,
don't know, Apex sells USB cables in tons of different lengths, up to 30 feet. So if you just want to fix your wire management by not having 10-foot cables, that's a quick fix.
right.
Um,
Yeah, I have a 45 foot cord going from my main apex all the way to the display. And the reason why I did that is before I added all the other stuff. But now I've added all the other stuff. I could have just put shorter ones because I have
yeah,
apex going to my quarantine tank or my wall tank and then up. And I could go change it all, but it's just time.
right. Like I said, you're going to need a day. I would say a day easily. Just
Yep.
say, you know what, today I'm going to do it, and my tank's going to be offline, and just get flow going the whole time. That's what you're going to have to do. And for those that don't know, I have almost 100-foot cable going from my apex to my big tank. So I've been told 200 feet is the max you can do safely. So I'm at about 100.
I
Um,
thought it was like 200 total feet on an apex. Is that not true? Or maybe 250?
Yeah, I think that sounds right. But again, it's just you're just daisy chaining stuff, so as long as they're powered, you should be fine, I would think.
Right. Yeah.
Carry reefer, yes. Vodka is perfect for dosing. Typically, Smirnoff is probably going to be your best vodka in terms of you want a clean vodka. You don't want to do like a cheapo vodka if you're going to use vodka for carbon dosing. Do some research on it. There's a lot of people that do carbon dosing with vodka. A lot of people.
I like Absolute. Here's my bar. So
Absolute, you know what? Absolute is also perfect for carbon dosing.
a little
Um,
more expensive.
yeah, but Carrie Reefer, do some research on how much you need to dose. Um, and you're saying if your nitrates get out of control, so my assumption is they aren't out of control yet. So don't worry about it right now. I wouldn't worry about it right now. I would keep your nitrates. I would use a refugium or a Cato reactor or a turf scrubber or something really simple. Carbon dosing is kind of old school. Um, you could do carbon dosing, but I'm all about natural ways of doing it, which is what me and Brian are doing, which is a refugium. Um, let's see what else. Meat and man for your tank. God forbid something happens. Gary, I mentioned this last week or the week before. Gary has a perfect point. For me and Brian, labeling is so important, especially like you said, if you have a person watching your tank, or like you said, the wife calls. We went over this last week. I think last week's topic was labeling. Yes, I completely agree. I don't think you need an operation manual, but um, I totally agree. Don't listen to Desert Reef
Labeling your
Aquatics.
apex and all every cord.
Yes, every cord.
I actually label every equipment too, because when I call home and I say, "Hey, go turn off the skimmer or whatever because something's happening," or "What is the level of something?" I actually have skimmer written down on my skimmer for my kids to know what it is.
I think that's a terrific idea, especially for someone that doesn't know anything about fish tanks. Now,
Yeah.
my rebuttal to you is teach your kids about fish. Now, let me tell you what I
Yes.
mean, because my wife knows nothing about this, and I just need to spend an hour with her showing what everything is and what it does. Now, will she remember? I don't know, but
Probably not.
that's,
No bet on it.
Carrie Reefer, that's exactly what I was dosing. I was dosing Tropic Marin A and K for a long time. I switched over to balling method now, so I'm not dosing trace elements anymore. But yeah, I think the Tropic Marin A and K are wonderful. It's a great product. Um, I think Tropic Marin in general is a great product. They make really high quality stuff. I've always been very happy with their products. And there's a reason it's more expensive because it's, high quality stuff. So, all right, we're at about an hour and a half here, Brian.
I've
And
definitely got my exercise walking around.
nice. And for some strange reason, all these people are messaging me on Facebook. I'm right here, right? You can just type to me on the stream instead of Facebook because I'm here. Yes, Rogue got yelled at because he didn't label anything, so I yelled at him. Um, all right, so let me move over to the screen here. Let me get all this. I'm sure I forgot a ton of people. Corwin, you're gonna have to watch the stream again. He showed us everything. He's got a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to show us his whole tank again. We're kind of closing up shop here.
I'll do another tour while you're doing it, just because it's better than seeing my ugly mug.
Okay. Well, I'm switching over to the picker here, so
Okay, go
I don't
ahead.
I don't know if they'll be able to see you.
Watch the replay.
All right, people. So as usual, we're going to do our giveaway. It's for a $100 gift certificate to Top Shelf Aquatics. I really believe in their products. I think they have the best corals out there. I've never gotten a pest with any of their stuff. One of my favorite things about Top Shelf Aquatics is that when you buy something, it comes in a little bag. It tells you exactly what it is. It tells you what lighting it needs. It tells you what parameters it needs. I think it's just top notch, really. I'm not sponsored by anybody. Everyone always says I'm sponsored. I'm not sponsored by anybody. Top Shelf doesn't even know I'm doing this. It's funny because I even told them I'm doing this and they didn't care. But anyway, $100 gift card. Um, Here's everybody on the list. If you don't see your name, please tell me that you're not on here, and there's probably a reason you're not on there. Either you didn't ask a question or you didn't say I love Reef Automation in the stream today, um, or I just completely missed you, which something happens sometimes. Kirk, you are on there. I spelled your name wrong. Old Ford instead of Old Ford, but you're on there. Oh yeah, that's right. I don't. You're right, Mr. Devon. I don't see you on there. Well, Desert Reef Aquatics doesn't get to go on here. Remember, we talked about this. Did you even ask a question? Not you, Gary. Um, Desert Reef Aquatics, who doesn't ever ask questions and comes on and just bothers me. Well, mostly reefs. I'm not tall enough either. I'm 5'4", so I'm pretty short. All right, Desert Reef, I put you on there. No complaining. No complaining if you don't win either. All right. I am going to do one more minute, and we're gonna spin the wheel. One more minute. If you don't see your name, let me know. Oh, yep, Brett's not on there. Sorry about that. That's why I do this, because unfortunately I don't remember everybody. It's just, especially when I have someone on, it's harder for me to track the chat and talk to Brian and do this and do that. And um, I don't know how some of these streamers do all this multitasking. Yeah, it doesn't matter, Ravi. I know who you are. Okay, I'm gonna spin. Last chance. Here we go. Brian, you're not watching, so I'll let you know if you win.
Okay, I'll hear you. I'm on my way back upstairs.
Alrighty. Here we go. Today's winner of the $100 gift card, $100, everyone. And they're having a sale, by the way, is Fellow Reefer. Fellow Reefer,
Congratulations.
if you are in the chat, you have a minute to say hello. Otherwise, we're respinning. And Fellow Reefer, I think, was the one who asked about being a new reefer or new reef guy and what suggestions. So look at this. He's going to have $100 at Top Shelf. That's pretty cool for a brand new reefer. There he is. Well, congrats,
Oh, we
Fellow
made it.
Reefer. So, yeah, we're going to close up shop here. Brian, thank you so much for coming today.
Hey, you bet.
Um,
Thanks for inviting me.
this was pretty cool to see some of the automation you're doing. I love seeing people doing what I'm doing because it makes me not feel as crazy.
If
You know.
anybody has any questions outside of this, just get hold of me on Facebook.
Yeah. So again, this is Brian Bench. I believe he is a. I believe you're a moderator of the
I
Facebook
am.
group. Yeah. So if you have any questions, you could always ask him directly as well. You can always ask me, of course. I'm always here, always around. I try to get to everyone's question on the Facebook group, but I'm trying to give some other people some opportunities to help. Um, so today we hit 500 people on the Facebook group, which is awesome. We are almost at 300 people on YouTube, which is awesome. So if you haven't subscribed and you're new to the channel, please subscribe, like the stream if you liked it today, and make sure you hit the bell because it'll be tell you when we're going to do live streams, videos, whatever I plan on doing. Again, Brian, thank you so much for coming,
You
and
bet. Thanks.
look forward to seeing everyone next weekend.
Yeah, appreciate it, Derek. You're awesome by doing this.
All right, peace. Stay safe, everybody.
See ya.